So I'm really excited to be looking at uh, this particular energy and how it is impacting us today, and hopefully giving us an opportunity to make some very impactful energetic shifts through this week's quantum healing transmission. So, welcome, Bella. I'm excited to be with you today to discuss this particular gateway. How are you doing?
I'm good. I haven't checked the chart yet, but I believe we have some powerful like squares with Uranus. So I think, yeah, I the energy is powerful right now, and this week is. I feel like this week is intense for many of us in different areas of our lives. Maybe depending also on where we are going to have the new moon, and I think we're gonna speak a little bit about that as well today. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. Um, one of the things one of the things happening right now, first of all, in terms of lunar alchemy, we're looking at the shadow frequencies that are carried by these gateways as sort of illuminated by the gene keys. And the reason this is because the solar energies that are reflected from the moon show an aspect of ourselves as planet Earth that is separated from us. And that's the definition of a shadow frequency, as recognizing separateness between ourselves and our larger selves. So, this particular gene key is about the shadow of forgetting. And at least in terms of lunar alchemy, that's what we're going to be looking at. And one of the things that's unique about this gene key, not only does it connect with a stop codon in the gene code, and which means that this particular energetic pathway in our bodies does not have a coding for protein. It actually prevents any further production of biological structure until we can transcend that and move into a new evolutionary mutation. So that's one reason that this particular energy is really exciting. The second reason is that the shadow of forgetting is not about any behavior that any human being does in the world. It's not about our personalities. It's not about any of our ideas, beliefs, anything. Simply being born into a body, we pass through a veil of forgetfulness that causes us to lose track of anything that has come before. And so humanity for many, many hundreds and probably thousands of years has been in a state of what we call being asleep, not aware of our higher natures. So this is for me, this is a super exciting gene key to be looking at because of the significance that this particular gene key holds. So this one, there's a few of them. They tend to come in pairs, the 33, the 22, the 55. If you know the gene keys, all of these particular gene keys have really big implications about the direction of the evolution of humanity. So, as Bella rightfully, I think, is we're going to see here mentioned, this is a powerful time period to be processing the energies that we are constantly absorbing from the cosmos and within our lives. So, Bella, I'd love to look at your take on what's going on with this gene key and what's happening in the transits. Let me give you the power. All right.
So, if I remember right, last week we're also in a reflector chart, and that's when I say there's so much openness, there's so many possibilities, there's so many different ways of experiencing. I know that earlier today we had the moon in 35 here in Gemini, and now it has gone into to 45. So earlier in the day we have this emotional manifestor energy with 35, 36. It has to do with turbulence, transistoriness, adventure, hunger. And I have nothing in my emotional center. So sometimes when we have those transits, I do feel the emotions in the air. And I believe today could have been a day like that, because what I was speaking about before is that we have Uranus here slowing down in Taurus in the second gate, and it's going to go retrograde, and then it's going to come back over. So it's really there for a while, and this is the most feminine, the prime yin of all the keys. It's Earth over Earth in the I Ching, and then here we have today Mercury in a square to Uranus. So Leo and Taurus, and Taurus likes when it's kind of consistency, it's a fixed sign, it's earth, it likes its comfort, it likes when things are beautiful and sensual. And then we have Uranus, it's highly unpredictable, taking us into the future, into the Aquarian time. So already just having Uranus here in the second gene key is like they're not completely friends, but Uranus is kind of always going to win because he's like very far out and he's taking us into the future. And then that together with this tension that we have here, where the sun is actually coming in and following Mercury this week. So right now we have Mercury in the seventh, which is about inner guidance. So in those unpredictable times when maybe we're kind of just longing for stability again, really what we are here to follow is that inner guidance that the seven is. And it's in one way, the seven has to do with inner guidance, but also being able to guide and lead the army into the future, into something better. So it feels like self-responsibility. And that's where Mercury is today. So I believe unpredictable. I feel like it has to do with self-leadership. I also feel like because this is communication, so maybe there has been today or is still some unexpected volatile elements in our communication. I would be a little bit careful of like totally saying how it is and how to orient and how to guide. I mean, this happened to be my purpose sphere. This happened to be my life's work. So I'm kind of good at telling people what the direction is. But right now, when it is in the transit, I would just kind of really tune into my own orientation, my own guidance. And then we are going to have the sun following here in square to Uranus. So I would say this is a volatile week, and this is the main aspect that's going on. And I also feel the sun is telling us today to, like you were saying in the beginning of the call, to retreat and to see, when we run around, what are we caught up in and what are we forgetting that has to do with this inherent knowing and direction of where, our own unique direction that can be very flexible, that has really very many different possibilities. Also seeing that the 7 and the 2 are both in the G center. Who am I? What do I stand up for? Where am I going? What's love? How do I not like look for it on the outside? This one also has to do with approval. So how can we come back to who we truly are, come back to our heart, and have that become the guidance instead of proving ourselves or instead of holding on to things too long because Taurus doesn't want to let go. I think that's what I would say about this chart today.
So while I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about this square that you're bringing up. And of course, like you mentioned, this is in the primary activation sequence of your hologenetic profile, your life's work and your purpose, right? And the sun is right there, kind of like just about to kiss that where Mercury is. And what I'm thinking about is like when I go outside during the day and the sun, or even if I'm not outside, I still see the light from the sun. And it's shining all of this energy at us. And if it's in this gate of forgetting, how does that particular gateway energy influence this square that's going on? Like if the sun is shining like really strongly impacting us through this spectrum of forgetting, mindfulness, and how is that going to impact us with this square going on?
Yeah, I always, like you were saying in the beginning too, I see that 33 together with the other stop codons. So we have the distraction of the 56 and we have the vanity of the 12. So there is something, there is this whole, that kind of codon ring together that is creating, I mean, that is the veil for us. And I believe that there are many things right now when we look around us that can have us. I feel like those three gene keys and the conditioning of what's around us can have us forget to come back to the G center and feel our unique orientation in the moment based on our inner intuition and our inner guidance. So for me, I would say all kinds of distractions the sun is shining on, and those distractions are veiling those revelations that are there to have all the time, that has to do with our unique direction, that has to do with like the experience of love, or even the beingness in love of love, that we have inherently. And in the higher frequency, I believe that the 33 is inviting us to find our medicine, whether that's mindfulness, whether that's ceremony. I had that conversation with Simone earlier today, and she was saying we don't need ceremony. Like we energy is moving. And for me, there is something with the 33 where I do like the word ceremony, because I believe we're placed here in a divine play, in a divine lila. And as we are in 3D, I think ceremony is an amazing way of seeing beyond that lila, and at the same time knowing as human beings, and that would be what human design says, it's the program, we're part of the program, and the beauty is to become aware of the program so that we aren't just puppets of the program. So for me, she's asking us, what's your medicine? What takes you out of forgetting, out of distraction, out of vanity, so that you can come back into the true heart of who you are, your G center, and not outsource your direction and your choices on anybody else, not feeling like you have to prove yourself or hold on to things that are not good for you.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a powerful question. And I believe also, seeing this as it may play out is also very telling and powerful.
It's a beautiful answer, and as usual, not one that I would expect. It has that unpredictability about it, um, and I love how it ties in the the essence of this particular gateway in Gene Key 33. The irony of the Siddhic frequencies is that once that frequency manifests through a human being, the person who is there to deliver it is going to be an extraordinarily unique and distinctive kind of like amplifier for that essence quality. So any person that reaches a state of the Siddhic frequencies of the gene keys, their expression is going to be absolutely unique and unlike any person that has ever come before. The irony is that in order for that to happen, that person is no longer even there, because when we think about who and what a person is, from a mystical standpoint, a human being is the personality, the person that we believe ourselves to be, is simply a piling up of impressions and conditions and environmental responses. And what this particular shadow of the 33 causes humanity to experience is a cycling of these impressions and conditions and reactions, because we're unable to remember the truth of the beingness that we are. From what I've gathered in Richard Rudd's perspective, each individual human being is simply a small piece of the greater being of humanity. And that really echoes a lot of the mystical understandings about who, to the mystical understandings that point in the direction of an experience of the question, who am I? And when we look at all of the impressions that have occurred to us, when we look at all of the reactions that we may have had in our lives, and all of the memories that we sort of gather onto ourselves that make us who we believe we are, we can look at all of those things and recognize none of them as defining who we are, because they were simply things that occurred on the outside of us that we brought into ourselves. So the forgetfulness that we have of the kind of the nothingness of who we are, um, it's a very ironic quality when those extreme high frequencies of the particular energy comes into a person, because once that happens, that person isn't there anymore. All of those accumulations, all of those impressions, all of those reactions have been absolutely cleared away and recognized as being illusions of the self rather than the essence of the self. So this particular aspect is really what, I mean, it to me, it really defines for us what is a spiritual path. How do we engage with a spiritual path, and what is doing something like contemplating the gene keys, or understanding human design, or learning about astrology, or practicing yoga, or Zen meditation, or whatever type of spiritual practice or religious practice that you have. Somehow, somewhere, at the base of all of that is this forgetfulness of who we truly are and what we're here to do or be. So, I mean, just a really profound gateway for us to experience this particular aspect of human consciousness.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So, Bella, when we're experiencing a gateway or a gene key of this nature, where pretty much everything that we recognize of as ourselves has got nothing to do with the energy of this particular gene key. How do we engage with that in a way that we can begin to interact with that energy in a way that moves our experience, that moves our consciousness towards something that's maybe feels more authentic, or stops us from the habitual patterns that cause the negative experiences that come up in our lives.
I believe that Richard Rudd did a good job here, because when I think about the 33, I don't necessarily think about mindfulness. Like I say, I see more the medicine woman in there. I see more that this sacred container. But I believe by choosing mindfulness as a gift frequency, and we know in the gene keys, the gift frequency is always the pathway. So it can feel like it's so far. If you're stuck in the shadow, it's so far to the revelation of the truth of the truth of who we are, like you're saying. And always using that gift, or tuning into that gift, is always a beautiful pathway. And I would say, if we are just aware in our everyday life, we can notice every time mindfulness isn't there, and then we know that we are not on the pathway. And that is many, many times during the day. And I mean, I can see that in myself. I have a little bit of time where I'm taking an Uber, and I'm right away putting in something on YouTube, some astrology video, to X, at least. And I'm really angry right now with one of my subscriptions. They are changing the video programs. I can't do exit anymore. I have to look in the normal speed. And there is something telling about that, because what is the mindfulness of just sitting there in the Uber and like looking at whatever is around you, or like, tuning out the traffic and just being in that space of nothingness. And that, I believe, that is for sure something to notice this week. How many moments of mindfulness do you actually have? Because the more space we have, the more we can be an observer, and the more we can see the whole frequency band. And I'm not a proponent of we are here to experience the cities and that's what we came for. I'm a proponent of 3D is it's a beautiful, it's an interesting play. It's a matrix that if we came here, we are here to experience that matrix in contrast. And I'm not saying the dark, like, I don't even want to go there to say we are just light and there's nothing else. For me, we have that whole spectrum and we're here to see it. So for me, it is with that observation, with that awareness, we can be a neutral observer of shadow, gift, and city. And that means we're not a slave of any of the frequencies. And in that, there is a revelation of our true nature as human beings. For me, the interesting thing is to be here as a human being and beyond. I'm not interested about the and beyond, because I believe that I will get to experience that as a spirit when I don't have a physical body anymore, in the gap. So I want to experience this. And of course, second gene key is my life's work. So it's all about the form. It's the form principle, it's the yin. And it's that container that is birthing itself all the time. So yeah, that's what comes up for me as I hear your question.
Yeah, beautiful answer. What it made me think about is when you talk about, for me, I feel like it's kind of I don't know if this is a conditioned tendency or it's just part of how we relate to understanding ourselves based on, the principles of survival and all that sort of thing, in a lower frequency manner, it manifests as being right or being wrong. And nobody likes to be wrong, because if you're wrong, maybe you've made a choice that isn't going to allow you to survive, or it's going to cause you to get ostracized from the community that you depend on for survival, the tribe. But when we talk about low frequency and high frequency and then transcendent frequency, I feel like there's this tendency where we just want to go up, 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 up. And it's like we're these moths who are so attracted to the flame, we can't do anything else. If there's a light, we're just going to go to it, because part of our nature is to be attracted to the light. But being in a human body and receiving the full experience of life to a certain degree requires an awareness that can enhance our perceptive abilities. Like if we think about the shadows as that which is in the darkness, the shadows are the things that we are unaware of, or the aspects of ourself that are expressed without our conscious participation. So the things that are in the darkness are like either we're on autopilot, reactive, or it's stuff that we literally have no idea about. Stuff that's buried so deep beneath the surface, or if you believe in concepts like reincarnation, the types of karma that you carry and are going to work out through your lifetime. you can't remember the source of that stuff. And in fact, our perceptive ability in general is not capable, at least without some form of um, expansion of our perceptions, of recognizing the true nature of cause and effect on our experience. We have maybe a decent handle on the physical laws of cause and effect, but the more subtle energy laws of cause and effect, why am I experiencing my body in the way that I am, the health that I have, the relationships that I have, the opportunities that I have, all of these things are reverberations of imprints that have occurred within us, or that we have accumulated as a result of our relationship with the environment. And by moving through a process of engaging with the nature of what our impressions are causing to come into our awareness, we open ourselves up to the possibility for more freedom, which, Bella, is really one of the things that you were talking about, which is not being enslaved to any one of the frequencies. And when we look at moving beyond that attachment, the imprisonment within a particular frequency, it means there's space between our awareness of ourselves and the manifestation and creation of ourselves. So if there's space between your awareness and that of your body, if there's space between your awareness and that of your emotions, if there's space between you as a being and the thoughts that are constantly running through your mind, there's a degree of freedom in how you are going to choose how to relate with those things. But as long as you're imprisoned by these impressions that you've accumulated, if you don't get any space from those impressions, you're never going to experience any of that freedom. And you'll constantly be just kind of knocked around by life. Maybe you'll be knocked around by good things, and that's wonderful for you for however long that lasts. But if you truly are not in conscious awareness of creating the impact that leads to those positive consequences, you know, at some point you're going to run into a change of fortune because the environment changes, your energy changes, the moon changes, whatever it is. So, Bella, I can see you're thinking.
Yeah, I felt like I wanted to bring this up again because as I was hearing you speak, I was saying before the preference is a little bit dangerous because it's a kind of expectation, like I want light, I want a higher frequency. And there is something when I look at the 33, which goes together with the two. It's that feminine that accepts what is. So it's not here to judge the distraction of the 56. It's not here to judge the vanity of the 12, like those two friends in the codon ring. It's really here to be mindful and to see, to observe, to sit there in that sacred container, whatever is going on outside. And what I think is really beautiful, which is the last kind of transit that we can look at right now, we have Saturn opposing the sun here in the 33, and this is codependency. So the thing is, if I can be mindful, even if you are showing me vanity or you're showing me purity, which is the highest vibration, like if I can be mindful, I'm not codependent on you or your behavior. I don't expect you to show up in your highest vibration of the acidic frequency. And it also doesn't throw me completely off if you are in vanity today. And I feel like that's important that here, when we are in self-leadership, in this Leo energy, in this inner fire and also this inner fixedness, which in a way, when we speak about Leo being a fixed sign and Taurus being a fixed sign and Aquarius being a fixed sign, is to sit there in your sovereignty, that like we spoke about last week, and see the other. And the 19, it's not here to be codependent. It's here to be sensitive. And it's here to also be able to hear, to hear the nuances. And it just feels like when we are in sovereignty in the 33, we're not codependent on the other, and we don't really have a preference. We can have mindfulness and be like, oh, this is what's showing up. This is what's showing up. We don't need to judge or point fingers. But the 33 for sure can tell a story, or can create this circle where everybody sits, and then we come more into our sensitivity and we can feel closer to the truth. So that is something that is also activated right now, where I feel like we are asked to, are you dependent on your partner, your child, showing up in a certain way for you to be able to be mindful? Or are you putting that responsibility of them, is depending on how they show up, that you can be happy, mindful, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point to make, is that, as the moon, right now the moon is waning, it's moving in the direction of a new moon. So the energy, this particular energy is, it's going through a releasing. If that shadow frequency of forgetting is present while we're all in a state of codependence, if codependence is showing up somewhere in your life, this is a particularly potent time period when you may be really susceptible to losing track of yourself in that codependency. And, it really, when you have that relationship between the earth and the sun, the way those two gateways that are opposing each other work together and kind of feed each other in different ways, I think it shows up in various ways because of the different qualities of these gates. But here in this particular way, if you've forgotten the awareness of self and how it is you desire to behave, meaning you are a victim of the impressions and reactions of your experience, codependency is just going to blow up in your face. And that can be extraordinarily painful. And it doesn't have to be in a like a relationship with a romantic partner or anything. It can be with your job. It can be with, certain things in your life, your diet. Some people are codependent upon their diet. Like, they can't survive unless they eat certain things. And, for some people, maybe their health is in such a state that they need to be extraordinarily mindful. But there is a difference between being mindful about how you eat and being codependent upon the foods that you believe are going to generate health for you in your life. And, we could probably do a whole other discussion about codependency, and maybe, by the time we get back around to Aquarius in 6 months, we'll remember this conversation in one form or another. But right now, the moon is moving into that space where, it is going to be one moved over, and I haven't looked at where the earth is going to be when it's a new moon on August 8th, which is coming up on this coming Sunday. And so whenever we get those types of alignments, the new moon, the full moon, these are really powerful opportunities for us to be able to move from a patternistic way of behavior into what some people might call mindful, or others might just recognize as being more consciously aware, more freedom. these alignments really create a powerful opportunity for us to choose something new, especially during that new moon when we don't have any reflection coming from the moon. We're not forced to absorb some of that frequency that is going to be coming up from that. So a lot of exciting things coming up for that. Um, Bella, I would have loved to chat about the medicine woman more today, since I'm going to be doing a kind of a and speaking of ceremony, a sacred mountain climb over the coming week that is based on a Hopi traditional ceremony of climbing four of their sacred mountains. And while the mountains I'm climbing are not the same ones as the Hopi tradition, the energetics are very similar. Um, so I'm going to be doing that, and I'll actually be climbing down the mountain next week during our regular lunar alchemy time. So Bella and I have actually uh, created a discussion for the gateway that's going to be happening a week from tonight. That's going to be Gene Key 7, which, as Bella already mentioned, has a prominent aspect in her profile and her purpose. And for me, it's in my core or my vocation sphere. So that's also a very important gene key for my personal development. So I'm pretty excited about what's coming up in the new moon. But that'll be Bella. I hopefully you were able to get that, and you'll be able to post that on Facebook for that people can watch the discussion.
Yeah, I'm not planning to climb any mountains on next Tuesday, so I think I can manage that.
Okay, great. So if you tune in again next week, you can check that out. If you're watching on Facebook and have not checked out the opportunity to join Lunar Alchemy, just drop a comment that you'd like to transform your energetic relationship with the gateways that we're discussing. That's what Lunar Alchemy is all about. And we are now going to go into the portion of the quantum healing transmission. This is a frequency package that gets delivered to each of our members on an individual basis to receive, and allow them to entrain their energies to a frequency that is going to be more beneficial for their well-being, for their awareness, for the development of their consciousness over time. Working in this particular way with the movements of the moon, we will be able to incorporate and integrate all of the spectrum of frequencies that are being illuminated by the movements of the sun and the moon across the time period of a year. This is an extraordinarily powerful way to engage in your spiritual path. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, drop a comment and we'll get in touch with you about how to do that. So if you are watching on Facebook, thank you for joining our discussion today. We'll see you another time. We'll continue on with our solar members. Have a beautiful rest of your evening. Okay, awesome. So Bella,